be better. Could also be worse. We'll have it out for a few minutes. Hello, what's up? Meow. How's everybody? I've got some more Reiki still. And a reading, I think. And great that you did. Hope you got to spend it enjoying yourself. Let me know when the audio clears up. It might not. We'll see. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that everything's alright. Are you really colorblind, Joe? It's yellow. Are you good? Gemini happy. It's still too hot. It looks red. No. You know what? I was thinking about that a little while ago. I haven't seen chilling in a while either, but the art of non-attachment. As long as people are all right, I let it be. You know, he's either busy or he's happy elsewhere or taking some time, and as long as he's all right, that's okay. Just let it be. That's right. Yeah. My music, that was a good one. I don't play chess, but I know a queen when I see one. Ghost Keeper. This is Ghost Keeper by Gibbon Glenn Russell. It's nice to see you too. Yes, I choose to be in a good mood. There have been people trying to be gross and stir the pot, but that's because they're unhappy. What flavor am I? Mac salad stands for Miracle Alien Child. So Miracle Alien Child salad. Yes, that's a clock. There. The Twilight Zone. You wait, give me a couple days. Love SeraFae. Speaking of, the song is called Opening the Credits by Namino. Sounds like the start to a new chapter. That's right. Life after death. The rebirth. Persephone. Demeter. Oh, I love you guys. What's up? No, it's okay. Just startled me. Great scenes are great, but I love your bloopers. Perfect for the urchin, and I want forever. Mr. Meeker used to sing that to me a lot. Funny guy. Peasant. Gotta do more Reiki. Do. Hey, Nana, what's up? Alright, let me switch gears because I know the audio is still a little bit funny. God said it would be, so I was prepared for this. Let's do this. Somebody's angry. Why are you mad? Are you okay? Yeah, I heard that. No, I'm not. You know I'm not. No, I know you're not. Try this. I've been waiting. Goodness gracious, where did it go? That chapter. So cranky. You're so cranky. Was it that chapter? Where did it go? Or hold on. Might have been better off read actually. Yeah, we've already seen that. Which one was it? There's another one. Let's go back. I know I saved it somewhere. It should be right here. Somebody's very angry. where it went. It was taken down. Cheers. Okay. I'm just listening to the guidance. Hold on. I've seen that one on another channel, but she's got tons. Probably haven't. Alright. I've already seen bits of this story. Part of me is like a little hesitant to even bother with this one, but I'm getting a download to do it. There's something about people who are guilty of treating children in any kind of way, with messing with their food intake and requirements, or there's a thing about hot sauce in here. That was done on levels to my daughter, actually. There's something about, it's only 28 minutes, so like going over the recap of how they treated children and people in this category. A lot of them, they're the next round of people being, I just heard obstruction of justice, caught up in the crimes that they've committed, like caught for them. There's also something about I hear tampering with evidence. Yeah, they've been caught trying to avoid conviction or avoid arrest, and doing so by like concealing evidence or tampering with evidence. But it's obstruction of justice. It's to try to keep victims from getting justice and keep themselves from being prosecuted. It's called perversion of the course of justice. Actually,
this is great. This is mind stuff. This is crazy.
Hi. You like the chili?
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crew Time. What? Crew Time? If you are new here, hi. My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day while I put on my makeup. So if that sounds like fun to you, you are in the right place. So make sure that you subscribe to all the YouTubey things so that you never miss one. So if you clicked on this video after seeing the thumbnail, duh, that's how that works. I'm gonna assume that you know what you're in for, but just in case you don't know and you need a heads up, this case does involve the mistreatment of children. So I'm not gonna get super graphic or anything, but on the chance that you don't want to hear about it, I'll tweak.
I do have some more Reiki and a reading to do. I wanted to just touch base on the shifting moon energies and see where we can navigate that. If I can help a little bit, I will. I might go sit over here and do some yoga though.
Now for the rest of you weirdos, we're getting into it today. Hold on to your butts. This is the story of Ruby Frankie. So, before Ruby Frankie became a headline or a mugshot, she was a woman who had figured out something very important about the internet. People love watching other people parent. Ruby Frankie lived in Springville, Utah with her husband Kevin and their 6 children. It's just like right outside of Salt Lake. From the outside, they checked every box of wholesome American life. A really nice house, active kids, church every weekend, family dinners, and a very clear sense of who was in charge. In 2015, Ruby turned
Wait.
Cavaliers saw
I didn't mean to.
dinners and a very clear sense of who.
You said Sam Jackson quote? Is it a joke? I don't recall him saying that.
Charge. In 2015, Ruby turned that life into content when she started their YouTube channel.
Hold on to your
called
butts,
8
Samuel
passengers.
L.
8 passengers, like 6 kids plus 2 drivers equals 8 passengers.
Did
You
he?
get it. Ruby filmed their morning routines, school drop-offs, chore charts, sibling squabbles, the controlled chaos of raising 6 kids. Viewers saw perfectly packed lunches, carpool lines, birthday parties, family roles. It was ordinary, but it was also aspirational, especially for viewers that can relate to raising big families.
He did say that, you're right, in Jurassic Park. I fully forgot.
I'm not a mom, but I do love, keeping a home, cooking, gardening, crafting, just shit like that. But I think it starts getting really weird when you're like showing every personal moment of young kids, like potty training and stuff. It's weird. But anyway, for many other viewers, the channel looked like any other family vlog from that time. Ruby was very confident on camera. She spoke directly to viewers, explaining her parenting choices without hesitation. She framed herself as somebody who had cracked the code on raising obedient, successful.
The audio is pristine. Let us honor that with some tunes. I wasn't going to force it, but if we're here, then we're here. Do have some. Just a few. For now. Let's do.
Kisses have a higher power. Your body, baby, it's divine. Every time I see you smile, it's like I've seen what happened. Sleeping next to you is heaven, but you already know about that. Wanna glorify every part of you so bad. Don't get me wrong, I'm a God-fearing Christian man. But if you were a religion, then I don't know what I'd do. Yeah, I might have to worship you. I might have to sing your praise. I might have to go to church, yeah, every single night and day. Yeah, I might have to hit my knees, 'cause you laid on me like the truth. And you love me like hallelujah. I might have to worship you. Yeah, I might have to worship you.
Yeah, alright.
I might have to worship you. I ain't saying you could walk on water, or that you could turn it into wine. But girl, it feels like a miracle that you're mine. So don't get me wrong, I'm a God-fearing Christian man. But if you were a religion, then yeah, I don't know what I'd do. Yeah, I might have to worship you. I might have to sing your praise. I might have to go to church, yeah, every single night and day. Yeah, I might have to hit my knees, 'cause you laid on me like the truth. You love me like hallelujah. I might have to worship you. I might have to worship have to worship you. I have to sing your praise. I might have to go to church, yeah, every single night and day. I might have to hit my knees to lay on me like the truth. And you love me like hallelujah. I might have to worship you. I might have to worship you. I might have to worship you.
So, you know what? It's funny. I was debating between this and another outfit. And I'm quite comfortable in this one. Kind of balance. Funny. This is a Scorpio full moon, flower moon. We just had Capricorn leave the past behind. Detoxify. Scorpio, go deeper. It's leaving the past behind so we can go deeper into a level of self-love and higher connection with counterpart. Find balance, believe in your good luck, take a breather. Don't be afraid to pause and rest if you need to for a moment, but don't stop. Keep going. Make time for self-love, exactly, and take inspired actions. Don't stop. If you need to rest for a minute, that's fine, but only so that you can keep the momentum. Assess the situation, keep your heart open, that's right. And also remember that not everybody is going to hurt you like the people in the past did. This one. When we're out in a crowd, laughing loud, and nobody knows why. When we're lost at a club, getting drunk, and you give me that smile. Going home in the back of the car, and your hand touches mine. When we're done making love and you look up and give me those eyes. 'Cause all of the small things that you do, I wonder maybe what I felt for you. And when we're apart and I'm missing you, I close my eyes and all I see is you. And the small things you do. When you call me at night while you're out getting high with your friends. Every high, every night, every I love you, you've ever said.
in those eyes. 'Cause all of the simple things that you
Just found me the other day and
you even when your eyes look and low, I wanna give you one small place with me, where you can rest and let the whole world go. I wanna laugh and break apart with. I wanted you near for far too long. That is all I want. That is all I want. I just want you. Just want me with you by my side. I would give a whole life and say just to keep that look in your eyes. I just want more with you. Just want me with you by my side. I would give a whole life and say just to lay the world down for you.
to me you are the light that still stays on. The last thing left from morning its turn. I want something strong enough to clear my head and give me back the nerve to love and learn.
I wanna laugh and break apart.
I got you, Nikon.
I have wanted you near for far too long. That is all I want. That is all I want. I just want one moment more with you. Just one minute with you by my side. I would give a whole life and one safe place just to keep that look in your eyes. Just want one moment more with you. Just 1 minute with you by my side. I would give a whole life and one safe place just to lay the world down for. Don't trip, I got you.
Get crunk.
I say you is 'cause I want to. You're number one and I'm always you. If it's next to you. No, 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 no. I fuck with that. Wait, hold on. That's like a hopscotch. Got these bitches hot, hot. Everything they got. Rockin', I'm leaning. High for no reason. Pretty bushy gleaming. I'm the pro, you Mr. Van and get you gift just like I'm standing number one like I'm a vanish. She my love, Tony dancer. Oh, but she only do that for me. So don't trip, I got you. I say you risk 'cause I want to. You're number one and I'm cool with you. If it's next to you. I like your skin and your hair and the way that you talk. You a bad little thing, got the step in your walk. No reason to gain and be in love with my star. I know I haven't been in love, but I'll be here for a while. There's some insecure people trying to mess with the plans. Well, we focus on myself, focus on affairs. Oh yeah.
Borderlands a series? And is something popped up for me on Netflix recently? It was like Alice in Borderland or Borderlands. Is that separate? Does it just happen to have the same word crossover? Or is that a spin-off of the series? Or part of the series? I don't know. Yes, it's the same. Or it's a coincidence. Similarity. It's a game. It's so Alice in Borderlands is different. Just happens to have a name crossover with the Borderlands bit. The second question. But if you know, let me know. Before I move on to my second question. Okay, that's separate. Okay. Alice in Borderland is a Japanese media franchise based on a thriller manga of the same name written and illustrated by Hiro Eso. It's just a similar name. Okay. Subsequently, I was wondering if Alice in Borderland is a is a spin-off of like Alice in Wonderland. It's like a twisted Japanese manga version kind of spin-off that's inspired by Alice in Wonderland. Okay. Also, if you've never seen Malice in Wonderland, that's a good one too. 1022. Malice in Wonderland is also kind of a dark spin-off of Alice, like a real life modern adaptation. There's a lot of street life, like the instead of eating the cookie and like the little tea cakes that make her grow and shrink, it's like Rohypnol or some street equivalent to something like that. And then I think if I recall, is it the Cheshire Cat or the White Rabbit? He's like a cab driver. I think it might be a cab driver. I think it might be the White Rabbit. I forget. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I really should rewatch it, but instead of like a mad tea party, it's like it's a party, but like it's like if I recall, kind of like a Queen of Hearts party, but it's like some posh city party with drinks and drugs and people dressed to the nines. It's great. If you know the story, you can kind of pinpoint the characters and the plot points a little bit, but it's different. So I heard that malice with an M, like malicious malice in Wonderland. That's what it's called. Hold on to your butts. Oh gosh. Rohypnol is it's a date rape drug. It's a roofie.
They're on until they're on the edge, trying to process the heart of old friends, scars, old scars. I keep angels, collect them like a badge. Won't forget the past, those old friends. Taking all my eyes off, making love to my looks, making fun of my boundaries, sticks and stones. You still love, I believe it to the bone. If I could see you swimming, I could be a little bit happy through your eyes. Realize I could be a little bit happy. A little bit happy. So cold, even with these birds went home. But I'm still standing here, counting all my tears, trying to feel what you felt for years. Taking all my eyes off, making love to my lungs, making fun of my boundaries. You say love, I believe it to the bone. If I could see what you say, I could be a little bit happy through your eyes. Realize if I could be a little bit
Okay. Know you are loved. Let your fears dissolve. Take inspired action. And work through your feelings. Came out. So don't let people scare or bully you, especially in submission. Sit and try. Darkness. Right. So Despite the fact that you've had dark energies trying to be combative, I know I am. Be the light in the darkness. It's what's drawing in this protection also. Especially as you seek to nurture and protect yourself from people like that. It's creating positive change as you set those healthy boundaries. And have discernment now about who's who is a healthy person or situation to be around to invest in, and who's just not. Even though there have been people jealous of your beauty, the beautiful things you create, your self-care, your physicality, or your inner beauty, right? Even your intellect. Now you have the wisdom also to see and recognize them for who they are and regulate yourself in the situation, knowing that you can't change toxic people or make them stop being toxic, but you can remove yourself from people and situations like that. You can change what you tolerate. So the last couple of cards that I had pulled were the hammock, surrender, unburdened rest, reception, guilt-free pause, and appreciation. And I did mention all of that earlier. Subsequently, the daily ride came out. So momentum, independence, self-propelled freedom, and clarity. Rest if you need to, but don't give up, as I said. The uninhibited dance also. Release, joy, flow, self-expression. And then the bonfire circle, community, grounding, connection, and shared warmth. So regardless of what interferences or things or people try to come up and create blocks, and the fact that I was quite comfortable actually on my yoga mat. I'd be very comfortable in my own little space. I'm very comfortable and content at the thought of going to spend a bit of time with myself and the cats after this. I also knew that I had some really good people to share space with and hold space for in some cases. So here we are, through the darkness. We get a healing card for healing advice. Caffeine free. Be mindful of your caffeine intake. This can make you anxious and also restrict blood flow and affect capillary production. And organic foods. Eating properly nourishing things as I'm baking sweet potatoes and actually getting ready to make some guacamole. There's some healthy oils and some like overnight chia oats and stuff. Yes. If you've been thinking about something, I'm picking up like whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind. For some, it's reaching out to somebody. For some, this could be like a partnership or relationship, but this also could be like seeking out medical care or just changing something in your diet or your nutritional intake on some level. Or seeing a nutritionist. Getting sober. Even just adding healthier things into your lifestyle, right? It's not necessarily like cutting everything out depending on your situation, but rather the addition of healthy things or like to make healthy swaps depending on the situation, like I said. Yes, just came out again. There's something about an animal too, like taking your animal to the vet. Do that. Change physicians just came up. Changing a doctor's office, finding a new doctor. And yeah, diet is important came out as well. Give us your cares and second opinion. So you may need to see a different doctor or switch doctors or see a doctor in general or some kind of practitioner. Yeah.
Don't trip, I
Oops.
What would I do without your smart mouth? Drawing me in and you kicking me out. You got my head spinning. No kidding, I can't pin you down. What's going on in that beautiful mind? I'm your magical mystery ride. And I'm so dizzy, don't know what hit me, but I'll be alright. My hands underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edge, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me. I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose and win. 'Cause I give you all of me. And you give me all of you. Oh. How many times do I have to tell you? Even when you're crying, you're beautiful too. The world is beating you down. Through every mood, you're my downfall. You're my muse, my worst distraction, my rhythm and blues. I can't stop singing, it's ringing in my head for you. My head's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. All your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me. Give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose and win, 'cause I give you all of me. And you give me all.
His name actually wasn't Legend originally. That he changed his name to Legend legally on paper. That was not his birth name. It's kind of like Alicia Keys. Her last name was not originally Keys. She changed it to Keys because of her piano connections. Anyway. I've been hearing. Let's do.
Gave too many fucks when I was younger. Wasted all my youth on chasing friendships and lovers. Now I keep my business undercover. I'm not pretending I love everything, I just let them wonder. I got happy because I found that old bitch down. If you're gonna tell me you want, you better get that shit right. Talk behind my back, you just wasted your whole damn time. Why? Fucking trophy. I'm not even looking through the comments. Most of what they say is always bullshit and nonsense. Everybody's treated like an object. I can't believe I haven't caved into the hell of it and put me through. If you're gonna tell me who I am, you better get that shit right. And talk behind my back. You're just wasting your damn time. I got happy 'cause I burned that little bitch down. Here's your fucking trophy. Here's your fucking gold. Now get out of my face. Acting like you know me. Oh, but you don't even know me. Oh, if you're gonna tell me who I am, you better get that shit right. And don't be behind my back. You're just wasting your own damn time. Here's your fucking trophy. Here's your fucking trophy. Here's your fucking trophy.
Oh, I like this one too.
I'm not there for you, I don't know your name. I'm right there for you, I don't feel nothing. Nothing left for you, yeah, me it, you fucked up. I'm right there for you, no. Nothing left for you, no. I'm not there for you. I was heartbroken, I had my own hand, my own throat. And you like that? Didn't you look down on me? But you loved her. I just not understand it. I just wanted to show you love. You said, motherfucker, you were meant to me, you were meant to me. I ain't the one enemy. I just wanna be dead to you like you're dead to me. I'm not there for you. I don't know your name. I'm right there for you. I'm not glad you're again. Nothing left for you. Yeah, me and you fucked up. I ain't there for you, no. I'm not there for you, no. I'm not there for you. I will never let a man make me feel that bad about myself. I feel like half of the woman I was when I met your bitch ass. Yeah, I admit it. I am much stronger than I ever was. I just left your bitch ass. Yeah, I fucking did it. I don't feel. I am gonna give me everything I ever wanted. I'm not there for you. I don't know your name. I ain't there for you. I don't feel nothing. Nothing left for you. Yeah, me it. Fucked up. I ain't there for you. Nothing left for you. I'm not there for you.
I like this one too. I heard this clairaudiently today. I almost pulled it up, but I didn't.
I didn't want to give you attention.
So if I'm not everything you wanted me to be? So what if I am? So what if I am more than you can see? When you treat me like that, when you treat me like that, you're pushing me on, you're pushing me on. When you're breaking my back, when you're breaking my back, I only get stronger, I only get stronger. You should have when you said I wanna make it all right. When you treat me like that, when you treat me like that, stories I can tell is gonna break you. Just to take the care. No, against everybody you can save me, but you're the one who make me fall. So what if I'm not? So what if I'm not everything you wanted me to be? So what if I am? So what if I am more than you can see? When you treat me like that, when you treat me like that, you're pushing me harder, you're pushing me harder. When you're breaking my back, when you're breaking my back, I wanna get stronger, I wanna get stronger. I should have when you said I wouldn't make it alright. When you treat me like that, when you treat me like that, I wanna get stronger, I wanna get stronger. Why do you wanna save me, please? Why do you wanna watch me fall apart? Try to find the worst in me, but I will find you into the
Darkness. Be the light in the dark. I won't follow you into the dark.
when you treat me like that, when you treat me like that, you're pushing me harder, you're pushing me harder. When you're breaking my back, when you're breaking my back, I wanna get stronger, I wanna get stronger. I should have when you said I wouldn't make it alright. When you treat me like that, when you treat me like that, I wanna get stronger, I wanna get stronger. Does it rain in California? We dream of living off the villa.
Skip 2. Right, we're not dealing with the toxicity karmics.
Trying to get my head right, but the shit has me thinking about you all night. Every last part you left me was a bad fight, but it's alright, cause I'm alright. And I'm healing, but the scars up on my body are still bleeding. It's been a couple years, but you can see it. You're the reason, you're the reason. I don't know what you're calling me for, like you don't have one foot in the door, and you're not just gonna leave when you're bored. Yeah, we've been here before. Now you're wasted doing all the same shit. Still can't seem to face it, 'cause I wouldn't let you take my senses, turn them into weakness. I don't fucking need this. You can go ahead and keep your demons. Everybody warned me to be careful with the man who's fucking lonely. I believed all of the stories that you told me. Then you told me for a while. Convinced me I was crazy. Got me looking at myself like I was changing. But the truth is, it was only what you made me. Let you blame me for a while. I don't know what you're calling me for. Like you don't have one foot in the door, and you're not just gonna leave on your board, 'cause we've been here before. Now you're wasted doing all the same shit. Still can't seem take my strengths and turn them into weakness. I don't fucking need this. You can go to hell and keep your demons. Doing all the same shit, still can't seem to face it. 'Cause I wouldn't let you take my strengths and turn them into weakness. I don't fucking need this. You can go ahead and keep your demons. You got off talking down to the little man. Time you get what you deserve. Wow, you're so fucking stupid. Been a while since I had was this balloon. Lucky I know my worth. So you wanna fight me? Are you big enough? Kick the back of my knee. Are you serious? You even like boy. Just a little too much. Wait, me, stop being on the face. Now I'm freezing your arms till I hear it break. I'm stronger every day. Yeah. Say it again, I didn't quite mess with the wrong bitch. I got you on now. Money, I take so much since I saw you. I got the punch back down to a corner. Don't let me, don't tell me I didn't warn you. Did you think I'd be easy? Snap you like bamboo. Into the soul of your shampoo. Wish I could bottle the taste. 'Cause I drink up that look on your face. So you wanna fight me? Are you big enough? Kick the back of my knee. Are you serious? You keep on trying, boy. I'm just a little too much. So baby, it's like you on my face. Now I'm twisting your arm until I hear it break. I get stronger every day. Yeah. Silly little geese. Let's go do some yoga. Thank you.
Potty training and stuff? It's weird.
Okay.
But anyway, for men.
Here's the Ruby Frank case. I think they're in jail now.
Of raising 6 kids. Viewers saw perfectly packed lunches, carpool lines, birthday parties, family roles. It was ordinary, but it was also aspirational, especially for viewers that can relate to raising big families in a similar way. Now, I'm not really a fan of family vlogs, especially like kid content. I'm not a mom, but I do love, keeping a home, cooking, gardening, crafting, shit like that. But I think it starts getting really weird when you're like showing every personal moment with young kids, like potty training and stuff. It's weird. But anyway, for many other viewers, the channel looked like any other family vlog from
The one ancestor card that came out was expression, so even the ancestors say, do not let these people try to bully or silence you, especially if you're speaking up on behalf of other people or children, as some of us have been. This made sense. Take a leap of faith. Don't be afraid to honor your emotions and
release, feel out this process. Hold a space of love. Regardless of the daggers that they threw, that's a them problem. Right, notice how it quiet. Back down from that upbeat music. Boundaries, quiet time. The little chill true crime. Heard of this again.
Ruby was very confident on camera. She spoke directly to viewers, explaining her parenting choices without hesitation. She framed herself as somebody who had cracked the code on raising obedient, successful kids. She didn't present herself as perfect. She presented herself as correct. Now, as the channel grew, and it did, Ruby's tone shifted. You know, the videos became less about documenting family life and more about teaching lessons. Ruby would explain rules, she explained and justified punishments, and people watched by the hundreds of thousands and then by the millions. The kids weren't just background characters, they were part of this message. Their mistakes and punishments were content. Their private lives were discussed openly with an audience that had no relationship to them at all. Like, look how embarrassing this is. You check no texting at the dinner table.
We should clarify that in our house, cell phones are free game for parents, so we can monitor safety. I really like you.
Who are you texting?
That's
I saw you last night.
That's not nice.
8 Passengers wasn't just a family vlog, it was a platform. Ruby was giving advice, answering questions, and positioning herself as some authority.
Like-
She talked a lot about responsibility, accountability.
To have an innocent conversation about a crush. This was like a teenage boy or young, like budding preteen or something. And like, if you really did have a dream about her, don't do that. To have an open dinner conversation about it was in front of like everybody was not very nice. Subsequently, it was also for the whole internet. And that's on there forever now. The fuck?
Obedience.
Don't be mean to a boy for figuring out love. Come on.
She believed that most parents were doing it wrong. They're too soft, too emotional, too eager to comfort.
Go through his phone, fine, but don't bully him for who he likes.
Brand deals followed. Sponsorships appeared, and
What
Ruby's
is
confidence
that?
hardened into certainty. If any viewers questioned her choices or methods, Ruby pushed back, like forcefully. In Ruby's world, disagreement didn't mean she might be wrong. It meant that other people weren't disciplined enough to understand her. And she was really like sniffing her own farts, if you know what I'm saying. So 8 Passengers was already deeply embedded in YouTube's family vlog ecosystem. The channel had millions of loyal followers that trusted Ruby, defended her, and her viewership made them a lot of money. So you get it. It's a family vlog. It's just them living their lives and Ruby sharing every minute of it. Okay, so as the popularity of 8 Passengers grew, the line between parenting and performance really began to blur, and then it just disappeared. Now, as much as I don't really dig on family vlog content, especially with kids, I think there is a way to kind of show your kids on camera that still preserves boundaries, but like, this shit was not that. What had once been light, observational family content slowly shifted into something more rigid. Ruby began framing everyday childhood behavior, like forgetfulness, frustration, emotional outbursts, as some kind of like moral failures, that required correction. And correction, in Ruby's mind, meant discomfort. She spoke very openly about punishment. She described withholding privileges, and not things like screen time or candy.
I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
She's talking about withholding food, and she was unapologetic about it. Pretty casual, cavalier, actually. But her message was consistent. Consequences were more important than feelings. In one instance, Ruby explained.
This is Better Off Red, who's doing the video, who's speaking on this, if you're talking about that. But Ruby Frank is the criminal. And I think maybe there is a documentary on that, probably. The Privilege to Eat. Yeah, well, you'd be quite upset to hear what happened to my daughter. In fact, I've got a Facebook post about it. I'll send it right here.
That one of her kids had forgotten to pack their lunch for school.
A text message from Eve's teacher. Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children. I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch. I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry.
And Ruby told this story on camera, calmly, even proudly, as an example of natural consequences.
Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
Hopefully
Like, the
did.
child went the entire day at school without eating food. To Ruby, this was not neglect. You know, it was teaching her.
No, because imagine the struggle that if she's already having trouble even just simply packing a lunch, imagine the struggle that she's going to have after like focusing and doing her work at school when on like zero energy and fuel and nutrition.
Responsibility. Again, if I'm not a mom, but if that kid was like 16 years old, I could maybe get on board with that.
Yeah.
But the child in this instance was 6.
No.
6 years old.
What?
One of the more infamous situations was when Ruby's 15-year-old son lost the privilege of having a bedroom.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you gave it back like a couple of weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that. Sleeping on a beanbag.
I'm sleeping on a beanbag.
His room was stripped entirely, the bed was removed, his personal belongings were taken away. He was made to sleep on a beanbag chair in a common area for like 7 months. A 15-year-old boy with no bed. Ruby described this punishment as, you know, not temporary, but like ongoing. You know, something that she would threaten him with if he didn't improve his attitude or, you know, had not sufficiently changed. She just was perfectly calm and normal about it, as if like denying a child.
It's not good over time. It can cause spinal problems, first of all. Second of all, if that's interrupting his sleep at night, that's also going to interrupt his function at school and everything else. So it's going to, cause probably more emotional dysregulation and whatever other struggles that it's causing, lack of function and focus, that she's in turn taking as them not being moral enough, or like this bitch was delusional.
A teen boy, privacy, comfort, and rest was like some kind of reasonable corrective measure. I don't want to know what's going on in a 15-year-old boy's bedroom, okay? Close the door. In another instance, Ruby discussed taking away Christmas gifts as punishment, taking them away entirely as a lesson about gratitude and entitlement. It's not that they couldn't afford them. She just decided they didn't deserve them. There were also punishments that extended beyond the home. Ruby talked openly about isolating her children socially. She would ban them from going to friends' houses, to participating in school activities, to events. She described cutting off access to their peers as a way to reset behavior. She was treating social connection as like a privilege rather than like a developmental need. Now, one of the more fucked up things was how Ruby discussed emotional withholding. She explained that she deliberately refused comfort when her children were distressed, believing that soothing them reinforced manipulation. Crying, in Ruby's view, wasn't a signal of need, it was a tactic that needed to be ignored. Affection in the Frankie house was conditional. Reassurance became something that the kids had to earn. This is great. This is mindfuck stuff. This is crazy. The comments section on the videos started to fill up with concern. Not like pure outrage at first, just unease, questions. Parents asking if denying food was crossing a line. Child advocates would point out that hunger is not a teaching tool. Even longtime fans began to express that the tone of the channel felt different, harsher, colder. As I said before, Ruby did not receive that as like constructive feedback. She received it as an attack. Ruby doubled down. She defended her choices in follow-up videos. She explained that modern parenting had become too permissive, too emotional, too weak. She warned that comforting children too quickly taught them how to manipulate. Empathy created entitlement. Okay. Where the fuck was the kid's dad? You are screaming at the screen right now. Kevin Frankie, her husband, was a professor at Brigham Young University, and earlier in the channel's life, he did appear regularly in videos as a not passive parent. The Frankies' marriage and their family structure was very traditional, meaning the husband brings home the bacon and the wife, the mother of the child, manages the home and the children. Basically, Kevin Frankie was a spineless weenie, okay? And he had his head in the sand. He backed Ruby's decisions. He presented himself as calm and reasonable. He wasn't loud, he wasn't confrontational. But as Ruby's parenting philosophy hardened, he didn't intervene, he just adapted. So he was around, but he wasn't doing shit about it. Okay, so Ruby is filming all of this every minute of their lives. And because the channel was framed as family content, the severity was softened by the presentation. Right? Bright lighting, calm voices. Ruby didn't yell. She used polite language. She didn't rage out. She spoke evenly, confidently. And the channel was making so much money, like $100,000 a month. A what now? They had a beautiful, humongous home they didn't want for anything. I mean, they were raking it in. But behind the scenes, pressure was starting to mount. Ruby's authority wasn't just as a parent anymore. She was a public person. And any crack in her image wasn't just an issue for the family. It was a threat to the entire brand. Well, discipline wasn't something that she practiced. It was something that she defended as like a moral imperative. The more she defended it, the less room there was for nuance, or doubt, or empathy. And that mindset made her dangerously vulnerable to the next influence in her life. Enter Jodie Hildebrandt. Now, I'm going to be kind of skimming over the Jodie Hildebrandt details of it all. There is a new documentary on Netflix that's all about her. You should watch it. She's insane. But anyways, Jodie Hildebrandt was a licensed clinical mental health counselor in Utah who had built a career around what she described as moral accountability. Jodie had a legitimate she was licensed in the state of Utah, and that gave her authority, credibility, and access to vulnerable families. But to be very clear, she was not a medical doctor. She had not a doctorate of any kind, despite what she told people. I'm a psychologist. I've watched people flip things all the time. She specialized in treating so-called sex addiction, most often within the LDS community. So remember, this is Utah. It's very heavily populated with LDS. So when a mental health professional is also using like religious terminology and framing things in a religious connotation, it's like an automatic trust, right? She framed herself as some authority on truth, discipline, and personal responsibility. Her worldview was very rigid and absolutist. There was right, there was wrong, and anything that fell outside of the framework was distortion. One of her favorite words. And this was right up Ruby's alley, right? Ruby and Kevin Frankie first started working with Jodie Hildebrandt around 2018. They were seeking counseling related to marital and family issues. And Jodie's influence, wasn't at first visible to the YouTube audience, but behind the scenes, she was already reshaping how Ruby understood authority, obedience, and control, not just as parenting tools, but as moral necessity. By the next year, Jodie's presence in the Frankie's life had intensified. Ruby was using language that, sounded less like parenting advice and more like ideology. Words like truth, accountability, distortion, became central to how she was explaining behavior, especially her children's behavior. Emotional needs were reframed as manipulations, and resistance was evidence of moral failure. In 2020, when the public criticism of 8 passengers started to increase, Ruby was leaning harder into Jodie's framework. Instead of softening under the scrutiny, Ruby adopted the belief that backlash proved that what she was doing was right. Because in Jodie's worldview, discomfort in adults and children wasn't a warning sign. It was confirmation. By 2021, the shift was unmistakable. That year, Ruby and Jodie officially launched Connections Classroom. Jodie Hildebrandt had this company, Connections. It was like a self-help sort of workshop, online courses, scam. It was like a paid coaching platform that promised personal growth through living in truth.
You in danger, girl.
And the program wasn't technically therapy, though Jodie's credentials were frequently referenced. It was ideology packaged through self-improvement, dipped in parenting. The Connections Classroom taught that children were naturally deceptive, parents needed to assert total authority, emotional comfort reinforced manipulation, and separation and deprivation It was around this same time that Kevin Frankie was getting pushed out. So Jodie and Ruby were very close, very, very, very close, spending a lot of time together. And by mid to late 2021, Kevin was no longer living in the family home. Under Jodie's guidance, Kevin was told that separation was necessary.
Kevin was attending men's groups that were facilitated by Jodie, and the best way to repent was to not infect his family with his problems, and that's why you need to stay away.
Distance was part of the process, and removing himself from the household would allow Ruby to lead without interference and allow Kevin to confront his own supposed deficiencies.
11:11.
Deficiencies. And Kevin was like, okay. What? He moved out of their home, no contact with the children. Communication at first was just limited, and then it was severed entirely. Then the only person he was really communicating through was Jodie. This was not a court order. It wasn't forced. He wasn't overruled. He opted out. By 2022, Ruby's public presence had changed completely. She wasn't posting content on 8 Passengers anymore. Her and Jodie had formed Moms for Truth or something, through the Connections platform. Anyways, she was working under Jodie's direction as a mental fitness trainer. What the fuck is that? Nonsense.
So Ruby, you want to tell us about what a mental fitness trainer is?
Yes, so we are getting mentally fit and you're gonna feel so much better. Also, what makes her qualified? I don't know. But anyway, thankfully, the children had largely disappeared from YouTube, not because things were improving, but because discipline was no longer being performed for an audience. It actually was escalating, but in private, without witnesses. Kevin's absence was total. He was no longer involved in their daily life. He was no longer present for any of this discipline. He was no longer visible to the audience. And when the 8 Passengers content disappeared and Connections took its place, Kevin didn't reemerge. He just stayed gone. And that absence mattered because while Kevin was not present or even aware of the abuses that would later be uncovered, he also was not present to stop it. His deference created this vacuum, one that Jodie Hildebrandt filled completely, and one that allowed Ruby to escalate without any friction or accountability. Ironic. That same year, Jodie Hildebrandt's professional credibility began to collapse. Complaints about her practices mounted. Former clients described isolation tactics, coercion, and emotional abuse, HIPAA violations. There was one instance where one of her clients that she was treating for sex addiction confessed to her that he had looked at some pornography, and just one instance of looking at pornography apparently was addict status. Jodie told his church that wasn't her information to share. Isn't there some kind of patient-client confidentiality? Yeah. In August of 2022, the Utah Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing revoked Jodie's license for therapy, citing unethical conduct. But by then, it didn't matter because Jodie no longer needed a license. She had Ruby Frankie and that entire audience. She was wildly successful. The Frankie's home was beautiful and large in suburban Salt Lake, but Jodie Hildebrandt's sprawling estate was 10,000 square feet in outside of St. George, down in the south. That's the size of a PetSmart. That's huge. Also, a little side quest. There are many conflicting reports about Jodie and Ruby living together. that wasn't ever officially confirmed. Like, there wasn't like a move-in or an address change, nothing like that. But Ruby and the kids were spending more and more time at Jodie's house. And it wasn't like close by, it was on the other side of the state. There was also a time where Jodie was living in the Frankie's house, controlling things. Very weird behavior. Also, there are some rumors that Jodie and Ruby may have been closer than just business partners or client therapists. Like some rumors speculate that there might have been a more personal connection.
Lesbian! We're all thinking it, aren't we? I'm not. Okay? Yes, we're all.
But that also never been confirmed. By 2023, Ruby was no longer a mommy vlogger or even a controversial parenting influencer. She was fully embedded in Jodie's worldview, one where obedience mattered more than well-being, suffering equals growth, and children were no longer seen as dependents, but as adversaries to be broken into compliance. I mean, like, the reality was just slipping away. This wasn't some sudden breakdown, it was years in the making, shaped by ideology and reinforced by authority, protection by isolation, and Jodie Hildebrandt wasn't just a bad influence, she was the blueprint. So, now it's the summer of 2023, whatever had once resembled a family structure was completely gone. Ruby Frankie was no longer living a public life in Springville. The house, the family home, still existed, but the structure inside it had completely collapsed. At least two of the Frankie children were adults or near adulthood by that time, and they were not living in the home. And Ruby's oldest daughter, Sherry, was away at college in Provo and was estranged from Ruby at that point. She had even been publicly critical of her mother's behavior.
She's not a Christian!
Ruby was spending nearly all of her time at Jodie's house in Ivins, Utah, down by St. George. But then, on August 30th, 2023, Ruby's 12-year-old son escaped. He was skinny, visibly thin to the point that bones were apparent. His skin had some open wounds. Some of them were wrapped in duct tape and like some kind of plastic wrap with some kind of weird substance in it. He had marks consistent with prolonged restraint. He was weak, dehydrated, just desperate, and he went door to door in this neighborhood until somebody finally answered. He asked for food and water and for somebody to take him to the nearest police station. So the neighbor immediately recognized that this wasn't some runaway situation or a disciplinary dispute. This was a medical emergency. Police were called and officers arrived quickly. The boy's condition was categorized as severe. He showed signs of prolonged strangulation. His injuries were not accidental. They were consistent with intentional restraint and deprivation. And officers later described being visibly shaken by his appearance. Police went straight to Jodie Hildebrandt's home. Inside Jodie's house, they found one other of Ruby's children, the youngest, a 9-year-old girl, in a similarly compromised position. She was also malnourished, injured, and isolated, and her head was shaved. Emergency medical services were called immediately, and both children were transported for treatment. Doctors later confirmed that the injuries and malnutrition were life-threatening and consistent with ongoing abuse, not momentary lapses in care. That same day, Ruby Frankie and Jodie Hildebrandt were arrested. This wasn't strict parenting, this wasn't discipline, this wasn't ideology taken too far. This was aggravated child abuse. Ruby had 6 children. The 2 older ones were not living in the home at all. The 2 mid-aged daughters had not been abused, and they were in fact hanging out at another friend of the family's house for some reason. Very, very odd. The system that had failed these kids for years. The platform, the ideology, the silence, the deference finally had no choice but to respond. And it wasn't because an adult stepped in. It was because a child escaped. Ruby Frankie and Jodie Hildebrandt were charged in Washington County, Utah, with multiple counts of aggravated child abuse and a second-degree felony in the state of Utah. In the days following the arrests, details emerged slowly but consistently. By December 2023, Ruby Frankie made a decision that surprised many people that were watching the case. She pled guilty.
Ms. Frankie, how do you plead to count 1?
Guilty.
To count 3?
Guilty.
To count 5?
Guilty.
And to count 6?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children,
Guilty. Now, in court, Ruby did blame the hell out of Jodie Hildebrandt, but she admitted to the acts themselves, withholding food, restricting movement, isolating her children, and believing that those actions were justified. And in doing so, she effectively dismantled the last remaining defense that she didn't know any better.
I'm not supposed to worry about stuff like that. I'm the talent.
She did know, and she did it anyway. Ruby also offered to testify against Jodie Hildebrandt. Now, let me back it up just a little bit. So, when the police searched Jodie Hildebrandt's home, they found inside it all manner of evidence that supported the fact that this was like intentional child abuse. They found restraints, ropes, handcuffs, the duct tape, all of that stuff. But the most damning thing that they found were journals. These women were documenting everything that they did, all the abuses, how they did it, why they did it. There was no pleading not guilty to this. Well, the shit was out of the horse, and with Ruby's offer to testify hanging over her head, Jodie Hildebrandt also pled guilty, admitting to her role in facilitating and participating in this abuse. By the time she stood before the court, her professional identity was already gone. You know, her therapy license had been revoked a month earlier, but these plea agreements were a step forward for accountability and finally doing the right thing to protect the children from being re-victimized if this case had gone to trial. Do I think either one of them are actually sorry? No, sure don't. In February 2024, both women were sentenced. Each received 4 consecutive prison sentences ranging from 1 to 15 years per count. Under Utah's sentencing structure, the exact length of time would be determined by the parole board, but it does mean that they will serve at least 4 years minimum, maximum of up to 30 years. There was no dramatic courtroom outburst. There was no emotional performance.
You're on right, check.
You won! The moment passed quietly in the way that accountability often does. But for the first time in years, reality was back in the room. Following the arrest, the kids were placed in temporary protective custody. They spent a few days in the hospital. They received medical and psychological care. Their recovery wasn't measured in days or weeks, but in slow, careful steps toward safety. Now, wet noodle Kevin Frankie emerged after the arrests. He expressed regret and a desire to reconnect with his kids. He did officially file for divorce from Ruby, but regret didn't rewind time. The years he spent deferring, stepping back, and trusting a system that harmed his children could not be undone. His kids lost a protector long before they lost their safety. But Kevin Frankie wasn't charged with any crime. Kevin does have custody of the remaining kids. So Ruby, Frankie, and Jodie Hildebrandt disappeared into the prison system, incarcerated at the Utah State Correctional Facility in Salt Lake City. Ruby Frankie didn't lose her way suddenly. She walked toward it, step by step, surrounded by people who either validated her or stepped aside. And the cost of that journey was paid for by kids who never consented to be a part of it. So, here's the Crew Crime takeaway this week. If your belief system requires you to hurt children to prove your morality, your belief system is the problem. And that is the story of Ruby Frankie. Okay.
Wild, man.
Check out Evil Influencer, I think it's called, on Netflix. I'll link it down in the description box. It's all about Jodie Hildebrandt and her.
With that being said, my darlings, and without further ado, I think I'm going to bid you adieu for the night. But I will catch you in the next one very soon. So, sweet dreams. Grand Rising, happy in between. For those on the interim, I think I might take tomorrow, but I'll be back in a day or so. So I will probably see you Monday. No, thank you, my lovey. I just cleaned this and I'm in the midst of a recipe. Thank you. I'll cast you off with another ball pack. Cheers. Namaste. One love, you're welcome. More soon. Here You Are the Reason by Callum Scott.